What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you for joining me. We're talking about some more SMITE Season 9 updates. Major changes with Season 9.
Know yourself.
Really neat to see this. I don't know how this game's just evolving like crazy. So we got a lot of changes, especially with the mages. That's what we're going over today. We went over the hunters last time. We saw kind of a narrow in focus with the changes on crit, the lowering the amount of options you have in terms of certain items like crit or lifesteal. So kind of narrowing the focus on hunter builds a little bit, in my opinion. For mages, I think we're seeing the exact opposite. We're having a broader chance to play different gods, to play different mages that aren't utilized a whole lot, and just some little bit of extra buffs to kind of make the game just a little bit harder to play for everybody. So couple of gods that had some changes. We're going to go over those real quick. It's pretty short list. Baba Yaga had a little bit of a buff on two of her abilities, her Baba's Brew, and then her alt got a little bit of a buff. Kronos got a buff in some, I believe, some decrease in cooldowns or something like that. Something pretty minimal. Nox had a minion buff increase with her Shadow Lock. Gonna help her out quite a bit just to lane a little bit more effectively. I found that she tends to fall behind a little bit. I love Nox. I played her quite a bit, but just having that extra little ability, I think, is a little bit more extra damage on that ability is gonna help quite a bit for her. Maybe not quite a bit, but just a little bit. Something probably needed. And Iset, finally, Iset got a little bit of buff on some damage throughout her abilities too. So she's not played very often, so that's pretty neat to see as well. Although she's probably not my favorite god anywhere near, or especially even for a mage. But let's get into it. For the items, we have a ton of item changes. One of the big item changes for the game throughout
A dragon must be
any god, whatever class you play, is the Glyph Items. The Glyph Items are pretty powerful. So in Rod of Tahuti, which is already a staple item anyway for most gods, or most mages at least, we have the addition of some Glyph Items. We have Calamitous Rod of Tahuti, and we have Nimble Rod of Tahuti. These are both really neat because I feel like it really supplements or helps supplement some damage for very specific mages that just don't quite have the amount of damage to be utilized fully, or really given the chance to be played a whole lot. Gods like the Morrigan, any attack speed or auto attack based mage like Oleron, Ao Guang specifically, which I'm playing right here. The Morrigan, which I feel like her damage falls off a little bit, even though she's not very auto attack based, a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then like Soul, Kronos, stuff like that. I think it's really going to help. So Nimble Rod of Tahuti giving some attack speed, and here I'll demonstrate. We have 1.02 attack speed, and with the Nimble Rod we're going up to 1.08. Not a huge change. But let's get up into, say, buying some items. We're just going to buy a bunch of items here. And we're up at 1.34 attack speed. And if we go ahead and sell it, we're going to go back down to 1.02. Getting 32% attack speed, which is awesome. Pretty crazy. If we say we go to level 20, it's going to add us a bunch of attack speed. And it's going to make this god overall more effective just by getting a little bit extra attack speed. It's not going to be really useful on a lot of gods, or at least a lot of mages. Playing your typical Vulcan, I don't see you buying Nimble Rod of Tahuti. I mean, you could, but, it's whatever. It's pretty neat, but it's kind of just, it's going to affect a niche amount of gods, and it's just kind of nice to see. So, pretty neat. The next is Calamitous Rod of Tahuti, and Calamitous Rod of Tahuti is a pretty big increase in damage overall for the game and mages altogether. Because I feel like it's going to be constantly bought, and we're going to pick say Ymir here just to demonstrate what it does. Basically, it's going to shoot down a meteor from the sky, damaging your enemy god that you're hitting with an ability. Now, it does have a cooldown of 30 seconds, which is pretty nice. I don't think it's going to be spammed or anything. I really only see it supplementing damage. It's just going to add a little bit more and kind of make things a little bit more risky. we're seeing this overall an increase in the game, higher skill ceiling in general, and making the game a little bit more risky with the increased amount of damage across the board. And something like this Calamitous Rod at Tahuti passive, I don't know. I mean, with the increase in the tiers on the relics with beads and aegis and whatnot, even becoming even more powerful or more stronger in aiding you, a little bit extra damage is kind of a trade-off, right? So mostly, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. It does do a couple hundred damage, and it can probably do a lot of damage if you build it properly, utilize it in a different way than I'm going to. But maybe a little bit more creatively, I should say, because I'm not very creative. I think it's going to help specific gods, and the one I mentioned earlier, which is one of my favorite gods to play. She's really fun, and that's the Morrigan. The Morrigan kind of is lackluster in her damage. Even building Polynomicon, she's only got 2 damaging abilities. And same with like Kronos. It's going to have just a little bit extra damage on top of him. And after you hit his little bit of combo, maybe pop a Polynomicon in there, getting a couple hundred damage on top of that, and maybe another 200-300 damage with Nimble Rod at Tahuti. So pretty neat. Or I'm sorry, Calamitous Rod at Tahuti. So pretty neat. You know, I probably would go Nimble Rod with Kronos because you get more attack speed, but it's going to be all up to you. Pretty neat, though. You get a little bit more versatility. So let me demonstrate this Calamitous Rod of Tahuti. I'm going to pop my ability, and it's going to damage him, and you can see the AoE of the... You can see the AoE of the meteor. It is not terribly large, and we were able to do 352 damage with this build and that extra a passive from Calamitous Rod of Tahuti. So the main ability to 466 and 1152. So that's not a baseline for, you know, every time, but, you know, just to kind of show you what it's going to probably do somewhere around there. It's going to do a couple hundred damage extra. Pretty free. Pretty easy to avoid, though, so I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. But pretty interesting. Pretty interesting to see. Moving on, all of the stones and the sticks and stones, I like to call them over here. These have all been buffed in some form or fashion. Really just a bunch of little additions of pen and a little bit of power. Fine Ruin, 10 to 15 pen. Spear of the Magus, 10 to 15 pen. Spear of Desolation, 10 to 15 pen. And then Obsidian Shard, 90 to 100 magical power increase. So overall, they all got a little bit of damage. Pretty neat. I like that because we're seeing a lot of extra pen to offset the extra protections that the Guardians and Warriors are getting from these great glyph items that we're going to be going over in another video. On top of that, Karen's Coin had a little bit of buff and power. Not enough to really make it an instant buy anytime, but I think people are going to look at it more because of that little extra power. I think 80 is visually a little bit nicer to look at than 70. So Karen's Coin, nice to see, especially for your assassins or your, your assassin mages, or if you're playing, just needing that extra little bit of HP 5 if you're in Conquest or something roaming around. So neat, I guess. So pretty nice. I kind of like to get it every now and then, especially with a god like Ao Guang to get that little extra attack speed, or even Zhong Kui with a little bit of extra movement speed for his ult. So pretty neat. I said attack speed, I meant movement speed for Ao Guang. That extra movement speed. It's not much, but it's honest work. So I think that's pretty nice. On top of that, we had some other changes. We had a little bit of a buff on Warlock Staff from 85 to 95 power. Nothing monumental, but just it's gonna get people to look at it a little bit more, which is gonna change up some builds. And the other one was Staff of Mirrodin, went from 95 to 105 magic power. So another item just to kind of get people to look at it. Now, I'm not even going to suggest a build. There's so many different kinds of builds you can do with the different mages across the board. So I'm not even going to even recommend one. It's pretty much just build power items with power. If you're going a Soul, Alaron, Ao Guang, Ymir, Poseidon, any of those, attack speed based gods. Obviously, go all the rings, go this Nimble Rod at the Hootie, go Polynomicon, Bancroft's Talon, mix that in somewhere, whatever you can afford, whatever is easier for you. There's all kinds of options. I feel like the mages have the widest range of options. They really are the most versatile class, really. But a lot of item changes, really neat. We're gonna be doing going over a video just on the relics alone. I don't think beads or Aegis is gonna leave the main setup for mages, but they instead are getting more powerful. Especially they got some tier 3 settings on these guys here, Aegis and beads, which are gonna be probably the main ones people are still gonna stick with. Overall, I think that covers up all of the increases on damage and whatnot. Staff of Mirrodin's passive also was increased from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. Wanted to go over that, and you can see that right there. So overall, we had a general increase in damage, in pen, in utilization, like max capability out of these different gods. Baba Yaga got a little bit of a buff on her Baba's Brew and her alt. Kronos got a little bit of a buff, Nox got a buff, and Iset got a buff. It's going to be pretty interesting. Mages are overall going to be just more stronger, which is nice to see. It's going to kind of bring them back a little bit. I've been really not playing a whole lot of mages except for a few. Kukulkan's still like super top tier, and I think he's probably going to continue to be super top tier, especially with his with his Whirlwind and his alt. If you can hit that at range with this Rod at the Hootie. So pretty interesting, really interesting. Or if you're able to like massively slow him with your Zephyr shot. Polynomicon's still king, so that's alright. Well, thank you guys for watching. That's pretty much it. Thank you for going over or watching with this little overview on what we got on these on the mages. So I think next up we're probably going to do assassins. We got assassins, we got warriors, and more warrior mages, which is the guardians supposedly in this game. So we'll get through them all, and we'll probably go over the relics at that point. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.